What's up, guys? It is Friday, November 18th. It's 11:28 a.m. And this is going to be the follow-up to the newsletter I did today, which is talking about the climate scenarios. So we had went through this article right here, or this tweet from the ECB talking about asset valuations, cyber attacks, interest rates, crypto assets, sustainable finance. And then we came across this. So it seems like there's a narrative being built. We already kind of know how it's going to unfold, but now we're going to get the actual scenarios and be able to look at, all right, as this progresses, right? We have a feel for what's about to happen, but as it progresses, there could be variations. Like we could, spin off and go this way or that way, the other way. So that's what the ECB is going to lay out for us today to a T, is from orderly transition to hothouse world, how climate scenarios can facilitate action. And they're going to give us all the scenarios on this green transition that they're going to do and look at a common picture of what our common economies might look like under different assumptions. Kind of like the video that I did. It was the different scenarios. It was the C-19 pandemic and how the next 5 years would roll out. It was this one, a new renaissance after the reset, future scenarios. So this one is now with the climate transition and the orderly transition. They're giving us the keys here. And if you haven't already, go to stargate-ventures.com and get your free crypto masterclass accelerator, because what it's going to give you is the backstory. It's going to get you caught up to speed about how we got here in this present day situation where we're at. And then it's going to give you the keys as to what's to come and how you can prepare yourself and set yourself up to be on the right side of it instead of being you don't want to be on the wrong side. This is the biggest thing in human history to happen, and we're alive to witness it and have the option to be a part of it and take that risk. And a lot of people aren't right now, as far as the majority of the population. They don't see what's about to happen. But if you're on this channel, then you definitely do. But if you need to get caught up to speed, get your free crypto masterclass accelerator, and it'll give you 13 videos to get you up to speed. And now you'll be prepared to know what's to come. And then, all right, so let's dive into it, because we've already seen this. We've already seen this with the derivatives and banks and CCPs facing stress. Now we're going to go into the scenarios. All right, here we go. So from orderly transition to hothouse world, how climate scenarios can facilitate action. And this was released today. So a shared understanding of how climate change affects the economy can be the basis for global action. To help inform and guide policy across the globe, central bankers and supervisors have developed climate scenarios. This is the final post in a series on the occasion of COP27. And we outlined this conference, this international conference, to be one to watch out for, because when you're in crypto's global, it's international. So if we're going to look at potential events or announcements that happen, we need to look at these international conference or meetings that happen annually, right? That's where we're going to see our announcements happen. So climate change is happening right now, and it is already having an impact on us, though not everywhere in the same way. But do we share a common understanding of how climate change affects our economies and our financial systems, and what impact has on growth, inflation, or unemployment? Without a common language for climate risks, it will be difficult to agree on urgently needed common policy responses. To help build such understanding, central bankers and supervisors have joined forces as the network for greening the financial system. While the ECB and other central banks and supervisors from around the world are not in the driver's seat to implement climate policies, they should play an important role to address climate change within their mandates, rigorous analysis being a key tool. The NGFS has thus developed, together with leading academic climate institutions, a common picture of what our economies might look like under different assumptions, and these are called climate scenarios. The NGFS climate scenarios combine for the first time the analysis of transition, physical, and macro financial risks. We describe how these climate scenarios can help policymakers, financial institutions, and the public to deal with the uncertainty ahead. So they're kind of giving us a bone here. They're saying, hey, this is what we're going to implement. These might be the scenarios. If you're looking, you're looking. If you know, you know. So now you're able to gauge and kind of navigate the waters here, because it's going to be definitely some uncertainty ahead. Shedding light on plausible future futures ahead. Put simply, climate scenarios ask crucial questions like what can happen and what should happen. The scenarios are like key pieces of a mosaic that offers glimpses into possible futures. In this way, let it be possible to look up the expected economic loss for a specific country, let's say Spain or Morocco, in any year between now and 2100. Under different assumptions. The scenarios are available through an online public platform free of charge. Check them out at the NGFS scenario portal. All right, there we go. Importantly, the NGFS scenarios are not forecasts. Instead, they aim at exploring a range of plausible futures for financial risk assessment in an environment of radical uncertainty. The NGFS scenarios are regularly updated and are improved with each new iteration. They provide a common starting point for analyzing climate-related risks and their impact on the economy and financial system. They produce results that are internally consistent, applicable at the global level, and comparable across regions, and represent a global public good. Dude, we are so on top of it. It's like the other day, I think it was legit a couple days yesterday, XRP, a global public good. This article was released today. Guys, if you want to be on the right side of the market, join Stargate, join the Discord, get yourself prepared and get in part of a community that's not just talking about what's happening right now, but getting you ahead of the game as far as what to look for and really calling it to a T. I mean, like, come on, right there. A represent a global public good as a set of freely accessible climate pathways. All right, let's keep going. So a useful guide to climate risks. The framework explores a set of 6 scenarios. Orderly scenarios assume that governments introduce ambitious climate policies immediately and gradually, which will keep both physical and transition risks at bay. Disorderly scenarios explore higher transition risks when climate policy responses are uncoordinated or delayed. And hothouse world scenarios assume climate policy efforts are insufficient to stop global warming, leading to irreversible changes in climate and severe consequences from physical risks. The too little too late scenarios will be implemented at a later stage. They will show that at a late and uncoordinated transition fails to limit physical risks, but those are yet to be explored. They will show that a late and uncoordinated transition fails to limit physical risk, but those are yet to be explored. Okay. The NGFS framework explores a set of 6 scenarios that are characterized by their overall level of physical and transition risk. This is driven by the level of policy ambition, policy timing, coordination, and technology levers. So an immediate coordinated transition will be less costly in the long run. Immediate coordinated transition. Okay. They've recently released NGFS scenarios illustrate the benefits of an immediate coordinated transition towards a greener economy. Acting now would be somewhat more expensive at the beginning, but immediate action would bring large benefits from 2030 onwards. By contrast, the long-term implications of a hothouse world would be extremely severe. Global economic output could reduce by 4% in 2050 relative to the net zero scenario, meaning that the world would be significantly poorer if we fail to stop global warming. That would already be the case if only currently planned climate policies are implemented. Furthermore, in case climate change is not mitigated, the GDP drop with respect to an orderly transition will just increase over time beyond 2050 until it reaches much more critical values. These results also confirm that reaching global net zero CO2 emissions around 2050 requires ambitious and immediate policy action as well as technological innovation. There we go. How climate change can impact the global economy. Orderly net zero transition, right? The NGFS scenarios have become a key ingredient for exploratory stress tests and scenario analysis exercises worldwide. Alongside the impact of climate change and climate policies on the key macroeconomic indicators, such as GDP, commodity prices, inflation, interest rate, the NGFS scenarios also give some insight that can inform policymakers. For example, they provide estimates of the investments needed across energy sectors to reach the climate targets. The scenarios also show how much all these variables differ across regions and can thus support the calibration of country-specific climate policies and risk assessment exercises. A common starting point to tackle challenges ahead. The work on the scenarios needs to evolve further to be useful for other new challenges as well. The turmoil in energy markets and the Russian war against Ukraine show that we need to prepare for unpredictable risks in the near future. We need to better assess the consequences of natural disasters to inform policy analysis and stress testing exercises. We will therefore strive to make the NGFS scenarios more comprehensive over time. In this way, they remain a global public good based on the state-of-the-art climate knowledge, accessible to anyone, anywhere in the world as a useful guide to climate risk assessment and policymaking. There we go. All right, we can dive into the actual scenarios now. So 6 different scenarios to assess transition and physical risks. To cover a broad range of physical and transition risks, the NGFS has designed 6 scenarios with the help of the group of renowned academic research institutions. These scenarios share similar socioeconomic assumptions. They assume a continuation of current economic and population trends through accounting for a COVID shock. So here are the scenarios, the 6 scenarios. Net zero 2050. So net zero is an ambitious scenario that limits global warming. And let's see what it has to say. The scenario assumes that ambitious climate policies are introduced immediately. CDR is used to accelerate the decarbonization, but kept to the minimum possible and broadly in line with sustainable levels of bioenergy production. There we go. So this would be like, all right, they implement this tomorrow. They make their announcement. Then this one is the scenario assumes that policies are introduced immediately and become gradually more stringent through not as high as in net zero 2050. So this is more like immediate, and it's like the strictest. So like fast change, immediate and smooth, fast change, medium high use, medium variation. What's CDR is the real question. So carbon dioxide removal. Several technologies exist to capture CO2 emissions and lock them into storages. Some of them can reduce the amount of CO2 released in the atmosphere. A coal-powered plant fitted with carbon capture and storage. Others, called carbon dioxide removal technologies or negative emission technologies, can remove CO2 from the atmosphere. These technologies have different degrees of maturity and their scale up remain uncertain. Wow. Technology change, fast change. Fostering innovation in low and zero carbon technologies can go a long way in supporting and accelerating a sustainable transition. For instance, learning by doing research and development, economies of scale, and government policies to promote the growth of solar markets have all played an important role in reducing the capital cost of this technology. Both transition risks and opportunities can arise from technology improvements. Then we have divergent net zero. Divergent net zero by 2050, but with higher costs due to divergent policies introduced across sectors and a quicker phase out of fossil fuels. This scenario differentiates itself from the net zero 2050 by assuming that climate policies are more stringent in the transportation and building sectors. This mimics a situation where the failure to coordinate policy stringency across sectors results in a high burden on consumers, while decarbonization of energy supply and industry is less stringent. And then delayed transition. Okay, so now we're going to get a idea about that. Delayed transition assumes global annual emissions do not decrease until 2030. Strong policies are then needed to limit warming to below 2 degrees. Negative emissions are limited. This scenario assumes new climate policies are not introduced until 2030. And the level of action differs across countries and regions based on currently implemented policies, leading to a fossil recovery out of the economic crisis brought about by COVID-19. The availability of CDR technologies is assumed to be low, pushing carbon prices higher than in net zero 2050. As a result, emissions exceed the carbon budget temporarily and decline more rapidly. Okay, so let's see. Several technologies exist to capture. Okay, we already know what that entails. So it's a delayed policy reaction. 2030, wow. Okay, so nationally determined contributions include all pledge policies, even if not yet implemented. This scenario assumes that the moderate and heterogeneous climate ambition reflected in the conditional NDCs at the beginning of 2021 continues over the 21st century. Low transition risks, emissions decline, but lead nonetheless. Transition risks are relatively low. So it'd be a slow change for that. And policy reactions, let's see it. And then current policies. Current policies assumes that only currently implemented policies are preserved, leading to high physical risks. Emissions grow until 2080, leading to about 3 degrees of warming and severe physical risks. This includes irreversible changes like higher sea levels. This scenario is going to help central banks and supervisors consider the long-term physical risks to the economy and financial system if we continue on our current path to a hothouse world. Wow. Okay. So this is the biggest as far as high physical risk. I like this diagram here. I'm going to see if I can save that, because this is our roadmap. This is what we can look at and see as far as what is it likely to be out of the scenarios. So this is the highest physical risk, but lowest transition risk, because, no policies would be implemented, nothing would be kind of decided upon, and then fossil fuels would come back even stronger. And then this one, divergent net zero, is like a immediate policy implementation. Net zero is the most disorderly. Divergent net zero, immediate but divergent, immediate and smooth. So we have basically one scenario that is disorderly, which is the divergent net zero, and it's immediate. And then we have two that are immediate and smooth. And then we have one that's just delayed, but it ends up coming around in 2030. And then we have one that is just nothing at all, as well as then you have just one that is kind of just promises, and that will probably likely lead to nothing at all. So these are like, all right, nothing at all is going to happen. Then this one is like, all right, like you're going to have to push this off. They're not able to implement this transition. So they'll try with a last ditch effort in 2030. And then these three are just like immediate, two are smooth, and one is like disorderly. So I'm going to link this scenarios thing in the description of this video. If you wanted to dive deep into it and really like click on these, or like dive deeper into like, what does this all really mean, in the sense of like, what is the nationally determined contributions? And like, you could probably go down a huge rabbit hole with all this. I don't want to get too technical into like, 3 degrees, 2 degree, all this stuff. But as far as like, we know that this green transition and this orderly or disorderly transition is going to play a direct role in the adoption of the technologies and digital assets and blockchain systems that we're invested in. So by using this scenarios thing as a guide while looking at the current market, current narrative, current events, current news, that developments that are announced, then we're able to be like, okay, it's starting to shape up to be the delayed transition. We haven't seen anything immediate yet, or we're starting to see a huge comeback fossil fuels and all these like policies to allow like fossil fuel kind of development and just like more investment into that space over the green space. Or we see kind of more roadblocks for ESG and things like that. We're able to gauge where we're at on the scale and then be able to decide kind of the timeline in a sense. At the end of the day, these blockchain systems and technologies will be adopted. It's just a matter of when, right? It's a matter of when. So let's keep going on, because there's more that connects to this. I had tweeted, and if you haven't already, follow the Twitter. It's star G8 Ventures, and the link will be in the bio. Dot connecting. Go to the 17-minute mark of this video below of the executive order on crypto. So I have that up. And then after that, take a look at this. It's a new White House briefing. And then watch this. It's the green transition. So we're going to dive into that. So the first one was going to the 17-minute mark of this video, and we're going to listen to it. Before we already went into that, but also too, relating to banning the proof of work with the EU. A lot of people miss this in the executive order, but this was so key right here. So they said, we must support technological advances that promote responsible development and use of digital assets. The technological architecture of different digital assets that have substantial implications for privacy, national security, and the operational security and resilience of financial systems, climate change, the ability to exercise human rights and other national goals. The United States has an interest in ensuring that digital asset technologies and the digital payments ecosystems are developed, designed, and implemented in a responsible manner that includes privacy and security in their architecture, integrates features and controls that defend against illicit exploitation, and reduces negative climate impacts and environmental pollution as may result from some cryptocurrency mining. So the US is on board with banning cryptocurrency mining, and they really have an interest in ensuring that digital asset technologies, specifically for digital payment solutions, are developed, designed, and implemented in a responsible manner that includes privacy and security in their architecture and integrates features and controls that defend against illicit exploitation and reduces negative climate impacts. So we already know XRP, most sustainable cryptocurrency. we already know that they have baked into their system AML and KYC kind of verification to get rid of any illicit exploitation. And they also have privacy and security embedded in their architecture because Ripple is SOC2 certified. So what does that mean? Basically, the certification. There we go. So it's like all the connections come together. So now the next thing was this new briefing from the White House, and it was for blockchain. I'm going to pull it up because I don't think this is the right link. All right, here we go. So G20 Bali leaders declaration. This was November 15th, 16th. And this was like a statement because they're all at the COP 27. It's the United Nations climate change conference 2022. It's happening right now and it ends today. So, I mean, they're calling for immediate action. Who knows? We could see something today. But so this was huge. This conference was huge. It's been going on for over 2 weeks now, it seems like. But let's go into it because this is what they're basically talking about. And I'll sum it up because I kind of already read it. They go into talking about 14 years ago, the leaders of the G20 met for the first time and they were facing a severe financial crisis. And they recognized kind of the global economic challenges ahead. Then they were talking about the C-19 pandemic. They're talking about climate change. So we've experienced the devastation brought by the C-19 pandemic and other challenges, including climate change, which has caused economic downturn, increased poverty, slowed global recovery, and hindered the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. So they're falling behind here. They don't want to see the scenario play out where it's not implemented or it's implemented in 2030. They want swift, immediate action. So this year, we have also witnessed the war in Ukraine. So they're talking about the global kind of tensions and talking about the elevated disrupted supply chains and the heightening energy and food insecurity and the elevated financial stability risks. And they're saying it's essential to uphold international law and the multilateral system that safeguards peace and stability. This includes defending all the purposes and principles enshrined in the Charter of the United Nations and adhering to international humanitarian law and the use or threat of use of nuclear weapons is indismissible. The peaceful resolution of conflicts, efforts to address crises are vital. Today's era must not be of war. And at today's critical moment for the global economy, it is essential that the G20 undertakes tangible, precise, swift, and necessary actions using all available policy tools to address common challenges, including through international macro policy cooperation and concrete collaborations. In doing so, we remain committed to support developing countries, particularly the least developed and small island developing states, in responding to these global challenges and achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. They're on board with this all, right? So in line with the Indonesian G20 presidency theme, recover together, recover stronger, we will take coordinated actions to advance an agenda for a strong, inclusive, and resilient global recovery and sustainable development that delivers jobs and growth. With the above in mind, we will stay agile and flexible in our macroeconomic policy responses and cooperation. And they're trying to support long-term growth for sustainable and inclusive, green and just transitions, right? So what we're just looking at, a green transition, they're looking for to go about it in a sense that is going to be a swift, immediate action that will support long-term growth and for sustainable and inclusive green transition, right? So it's looking like they want this net zero 2050 or below these two. This is what they're looking for. Now, if we keep going further, protect macroeconomic and financial stability and remain committed to using all available tools to mitigate downside risks, noting the steps taken since the global financial crisis to strengthen financial resilience and promote sustainable finance and capital flows, and to take action to promote food and energy security and support stability in markets, and to also unlock further investments for low and middle income and other developing countries through a greater variety of innovative financing sources and instruments, including to catalyze private investment to support the achievement of its Sustainable Development Goals. We ask the multilateral development banks to bring forward actions to mobilize and provide additional financing within their mandates to support achievement of the SDGs, including through sustainable development and infrastructure investments in responding to global challenges, and recommit to accelerate achievement of the SDGs, achieving prosperity for all through sustainable development. So basically, this is the US coming out with a stamp of approval that they're on board with this green transition. And we can dive into this a bit more, but I want to just sum up the rest for you. So they said, we are committed to supporting the adoption of innovative practices and technologies, including digital innovation in agriculture and food systems, to enhance productivity and sustainability in harmony with nature and promote farmers, fishers' livelihood. If we keep going down here, this is more about the food crisis. We meet at a time of climate and energy crises compounded by geopolitical challenges. We are experiencing volatility in energy prices and markets and shortage/disruptions to energy supply. We underline the urgency to rapidly transform and diversify energy systems, advance energy security and resilience and market stability by accelerating and ensuring clean, sustainable, just, affordable, and inclusive energy transitions and flows of sustainable investments. We stress the importance of ensuring that global energy demand is matched by affordable energy supplies. We reiterate our commitment to achieve global net zero greenhouse gas emissions / carbon neutrality by or around mid-century, while taking into account the latest scientific developments in different national circumstances. We called for continued support for developing countries, especially in those most vulnerable countries, in terms of providing access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy, capacity building, affordable, latest technology within the public domain, and mutually beneficial technology cooperation and financing mitigation actions in the energy sector. So we reaffirm our commitment to achieve SDG 7 targets and strive to close the gaps in energy access to eradicate energy poverty. And then they keep going, talking about the energy transition and the interconnectivity and how they are committed to promote investment in sustainable infrastructure and industry, as well as innovative technologies and a wide range of fiscal, market, and regulatory mechanisms to support clean energy transitions, including, as appropriate, the use of carbon pricing and non-pricing mechanisms and incentives while providing target support for the poorest and most vulnerable. Guys, the IMF climate coin, I did a video on it. Let's see if I can find it here. I did a video on IMF's climate coin. Here. All right, it's right here. 2 months ago, IMF climate coin, breaking news, XRP involved, look up Zanj, fixing the price of carbon. It's nuts. All these connections together, man. Like, we are so on top of it. It's not even funny, but they're looking to do this. What I believe is we have Zanj.com will develop a carbon credit solution on the XRP ledger. Zanj.com, a sustainably run securities exchange operated in partnership with the United Nations, announced today it will develop a carbon credit solution on the carbon neutral XRP ledger. This was December 16, 2021. Zanj is working hand in hand with the UN development system, focusing on African market infrastructure solutions for carbon markets and to contribute to the sustainable development goals. Weirdly enough, the other day, Ripple just announced a win for financial inclusion in Africa. 4 days ago, they're like live in Africa now. And then you saw this with the carbon credit solution with Zanj and being involved with the UN, launching it in tandem with them. And it's carbon credit solution. And they're talking about focusing on African market infrastructure solution for carbon markets and to contribute to the sustainable development goals. Come on. And then you got to look at that video about the IMF coin fixing the price, because that is the other cherry on top for that. Now, if we keep going with this, you can see we welcome the progress to date towards achieving a post-2020 global biodiversity framework. We urge all parties and countries to finalize and adopt the GBF with a view of realizing a 2050 vision of living in harmony with nature. And I'm going to look into that framework, but that'll be another video. And let's keep going if there's anything. All right, so there's definitely some more stuff in here, but the video is getting kind of long and I want to keep it short, or at least shorter. But it talks about we welcome the crypto asset reporting framework. All right, so I'm going to do a deep dive round 2. So I'm going to do a second continued video to this because there's so much in this and so many connections. Like, I want to break this will be an hour-long video and we're already like reaching 30 minutes right now. So to be continued. If you haven't already, subscribe to the YouTube. Do subscribe. Watch some of these videos I laid out in this. It's really going to be eye-opening if you haven't seen these before. So subscribe if you haven't already, as well as stargate-ventures.com. Link will be in the bio. Get your free crypto masterclass accelerator. Like, man, we're so on it. We're so on it. You guys got to get this to get caught up. And then if you haven't already, And then if you haven't already, link in the bio, come join the Discord. This is where you get everything, like as far as updates. This is like the first place we post. It's real time. You get it immediate and you'll be on top of the game. So come join there, say what up. I'll say what up back. And I'd love to see you in there. So subscribe and be ready for the follow-up video to this one.